Welcome to All in One, ladies and gentlemen. This is the podcast where we keep it real, we keep it authentic. Today, we're going to dive into a tough topic. We're going to talk about the missing patriarch and what that means and how it affects the families. Um, Off air here, we were having a little discussion and we were found out that we all had a lot of things in common. And this happens to be one of those subjects. And it was like, you know what? Let's talk about it. So I'll talk about myself first. I grew up in a single family home. I honestly only saw my father three times as many that I can recall in my entire life. I've told this story to a couple of my friends once, and they kind of looked at me like, for real, but I never knew. And it's like, yeah, it was tough growing up, what I'm saying, without the father figure in the house. And you know, there was a luckily for me, I had my grandfather. My grandfather was that father figure that I needed. He was that one that was always teaching me stuff, whether I was trying to learn it or not. You know, uh, I tell people all the time he was preparing me for the military long before I even thought about joining. He was just that person that was always say things. It was always in a riddle. You have to figure it out. Uh, you know, but certain things that he used to say to me that actually stuck with me. One in particular, say what you mean and mean what you say. So, you know, I look at it like growing up in that household where my father was not there, was not present at all. The things that I had to learn, the things I had to go through. And I was actually just doing a confession earlier today where I was like talking about some of the things that I was getting into um, at a young age, and that I obviously should not have been doing. But, I was deaf unattended for the most part. Mom had to work. Um, yeah, if you Gen X, you know what I'm talking about. We were the original Latchkey Kids. You know what I mean? Um, I remember having that little shoestring with the key around my neck at a very young age. I'm talking, I wasn't even in second grade yet, and but had a key to the house type stuff. And it's like being put in positions or circumstances, I should say, and I'm not gonna sit here and act like it was just all environment, because a lot of things we make decisions on, and you have options. What's right, what's wrong, and you choose to do whichever one it is. But I feel like not having that father figure in the house, what I'm saying, I was a little bit more um able to do some of the things that I should not have been able to do, or something that I feel like, say, at least for me as a father, I know I can pick up on when the kids are doing things. So it was tough growing up. It really was. And it's like you look at some of your other friends or family members, and they have, both parents in the house, and you sit back and you're looking at it like you really want that. Not really knowing how to express frustration, not really knowing how to express, because you're not taught how to talk to anyone. You're not taught how to look a man in his eyes. You know what I'm saying? Again, my granddad, what I'm saying, stepped up, what I'm saying, to teach me these things, the firm handshakes, things of that nature that's missing when you do not have that patriarch in the household. And for now, I'll land my plane and let someone else come in and say their piece.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump in on that, if that's okay. I I grew up in a two-parent home. A lot of people around me grew up in a two-parent home. It wasn't until I got older and I just realized that that was actually not the norm. I didn't know that it wasn't the norm. But as I'm older now and I'm seeing the patterns that people are actually dealing with, I am not the norm. I realize that now. Um, Unfortunately, just having two parents in the home, it just doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes it can be, it doesn't even have to be like terrible. It can be amicable, like we it could just be the parents just didn't work out. The parents just were like, look, we unfortunately are not growing together. We're not seeing eye to eye, so we need to split. And then that, of course, builds this two home dynamic. From being a teacher and educator, I see a lot of the kids now are starting to have both of their parents, which I think now um, is a little bit maybe easier because people kind of need to be two parents in order for it to actually work out. But I guess what really is getting to me or like confusing to me is like where does that make you as the adult growing up without the two parents? Like, does that mean, okay, well, I grew up without two parents, so now I feel like if I have children, I am forcing myself or wanting to enforce this behavior that I have to be in a two parent home. Like, are you going to basically like make a situation work that's not healthy just because you don't want what you had growing up? If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It makes perfect sense.
So yeah, I'm just like, I'm trying to put myself in that position now. Like, I don't, I'm an adult and I have to act like I can't act like I didn't grow up with my father. But it definitely is hard missing him for these past 10 years. Like, he's missed some vital pieces of my life. And I can't even imagine if he had missed the things that I needed him to be there for as a kid, because I'm like, he was there for everything. But now that I'm an adult, I almost feel like I still need that. So even if you do grow up in, like we mentioned earlier, growing up without, a parent or something, and then years later, as an adult, all of a sudden they just pop up and now they're here. And maybe you want to build a relationship with them, maybe you don't want to build a relationship with them. I mean, that's totally up to you. But I feel like me being without my dad, there's just certain things that I just feel like I'm lost and I can't do. Like, I don't have that adult male presence. I don't have someone that's like, oh, Arya, when you did X, Y, and Z or was with this person, like these are the signs that you should have been looking out for. This is what you should have seen, or even just to hold my hand when I'm like confused and like in a relationship with someone that's not treating me how he would treat me. And I'm like, but this is how my dad would treat me, or this is what my dad would say, and I don't have that to go back to because he's no longer here. So it feels like there's a huge part of me missing. I don't know if you grew up without that parent, would that huge part of you feel the same or would it feel different? Low key, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, and so it's like I've heard. See, I came from a parent two parent relationship home type issue. You know what I'm saying? But it's more or less it ain't got to like. I've seen a relationship, the parent relationship, be so toxic to where the one recipient of the relationship chooses, you know what I'm saying, to be there but not be there at the same time. So therefore, if a person isn't giving their all, you know what I'm saying, to you of understanding, can you actually say that they was really there? Can you count that as being there? You know what I'm saying? Like, how can I put it? Like, growing up in the very beginning, it was cool, you know what I'm saying, around it all the time. But then as after I hit what, 9, they had that conversation with the extra person, and next thing you know what I'm saying, things were not the same after that conversation came out loud. And I would have to tell people, watch what you say around the kids because that can really hurt in so many different ways. and then the action of what you see it unfolding is another point of what hurts even more. And Goddess, I see you with your hand up. Go ahead.
Okay, so mine's kind of different. I was adopted, but this is my second adoption. And when I was in India, um, I had a mom and a dad, but the person that I was calling mom was older, like she was like a grandma, and the person I was calling dad was um her son because I didn't know better. And then I went into an orphanage, and then I got adopted, and then they relinquished me, so I got adopted when I was 17 again, which um didn't really feel like it's my family. I just felt like they were just taking me in because I didn't really have nobody's gonna adopt a 17-year-old, especially here. So I I I don't really know because I feel like I kind of raised myself, to be honest, and I really had to go through stuff on my own to figure things out. Even to this day, I feel like I don't belong anywhere. Like, even, yeah, like I have both of my parents and they're great, but it's like I still don't feel like they're mine, if that makes sense. Um, I think it's definitely has to do with attachment and um with moving around, and but I don't know if I can like get any um I don't know if I can help with this subject because I feel like I don't mine's kind of weird. Like I don't I
I understand where you're coming.
yeah, I don't really I've never met my real parents. I don't even know who they are. But but I have these adopted parents, but I wasn't adopted until 17 with them. So it's kind of weird, but yeah.
And so, Arya, I see you with your hand up. What do you have to say?
So I'm gonna direct this specifically to Goddess, if that's okay. Um, I know you saying that you don't you don't feel like you could give into this conversation, but I think you could probably give the most because you're not talking about just one missing parent, you're talking about two.
Yeah.
Um, I think we all, even if you just grow up with one parent, it's like you still have that connection to someone that is your person, someone who
Your everything.
brought you in this world, um even if it was like your grandparents, if they were like your parental or maternal grandparent,
Mhm.
it's still that connection to tied to your actual family. If
Yeah.
you don't have that, I mean, no, I don't want to say I'm pretty sure, I don't want to assume, but I can only say for myself, if I grew up without either of my parents, I would feel like there's a huge missing part of my life. There's a huge missing connection to where my ties are. Like,
Your story.
who your people are, your cousins, your long term, short term, whatever,
Mhm.
you don't have any of those,
Right.
and that can make you question things like, history, or some important facts that you could have actually learned or gained, from either of your parents that you don't have. And then
Mhm.
on top of that, you said you were adopted twice.
Mhm.
So now, not only have you not been given your parents or grandparents, now you've been given two sets of families who you don't feel any tie to, any connection.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of different missing pieces, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about, those missing pieces of your parents and how that actually affects you. And I'm sure it affected you in some kind of way.
Oh yeah, definitely. It affects me every single day. I think it's definitely like a identity issue. Like, who am I? I wonder all the time if I had one wish, the one wish would be like talking to my real parents, you know, seeing like who do I look like, or whose hair did I get, or who's, you know, just like that that little thing.
Familiarity.
Yeah, and it's like I feel like I kind of stopped worrying about that because I don't want to like make it all about me, but like I kind of stopped worrying about that when I talked to the lady that took care of me when I was younger. I talked to her son. Her son was pretty much told me that I was his daughter, and I was like surprised, and I'm like, are you just saying that because like why? Like why would you just randomly say that to me? And that was in 2013, and for some reason I had a dream like after talking to him, and it was like, and I know in India it's very, if you go to like little villages, you're not allowed to rape, obviously. Like if you rape and you have a kid, like that can look really bad on you. And also if that's the case and you already have a kid and you're not married to somebody, um the person that you're getting arranged marriage with, they won't want you because you already have a kid. So I'm guessing that I'm actually his kid, and they didn't tell me at the time because they wanted to get him married, you know, get him his own wife and stuff. So I'm thinking like I'm actually his child, and he just had sex before marriage, and they don't allow anything like that. You know, it's so strict, especially in small villages. It's really strict. And so that's what I'm thinking. And that's what I kind of got stuck with. And I was like, you know what? That's what I'm going to think, because why would she take me in as a baby and raise me like I was her own? You know, she was like, she could have been my grandma, but I called her my mom, and I had this special connection with her that I never found again within anybody after that. And she was truly like my mom. But yeah, yeah, I land my plane on that.
As we can see, missing family members, it doesn't just have to be about the patriarch. It can just be any family member, any family ties, as Goddess has just explained her story and everything. And not just physically missing, but you also have parents that's there that are emotionally unavailable. You have inconsistent parents that show up sometimes and don't show up other times. Um, that was one of the things that I used to always tell my friends. I used to always tell my brothers. It's like, and then some way, somehow I find myself being in this exact same situation. Um, Whereas it's like, don't just be a paycheck. Don't just be a play date. Be more actively engaged in your children's lives. Start getting to know them on a deeper level, not that this is my child, but also that the fact that they are individuals. I feel like that's one of the things that has been missing uh, from our dynamics for a few generations now. We can say that it's system working effectively as it was designed to do, or we can just say that for whatever reasons, we as men have not stepped up to the plate as we should have and provided for family, been there for family, saying do the things, the hard things. Um, Going back to what I was saying before, being more to them, more to your children than just, saying those play dates and things of that nature. Start asking the hard questions, start asking the real questions. Because I had to sit back for myself and look at it. And it was like, these are questions that I realized that I couldn't answer. Like, does who's the children's doctors, what the doctor name is, what's the teacher's name, what's the principal's name? Do you know these questions? Do you know what to do if your child has allergies? Do you know what to do if your child comes in contact with one of those allergens while they're with you? It's little things that we kind of overlook something as simple as what's your child's favorite color? Who's their favorite teacher? We miss out on a lot of the upbringing of the children, the nourishment of the children, because we look at it as we fall into these gender roles, and my job is to do this and provide and to make sure that I got food on the table and a roof over the head, clothes on the back, and we feel like that's enough, and it's not, because they miss out on those father daughter dances. They miss out on those football games. For me personally, I remember I grew up in the same city as my father and never saw him, never came to see to a football game or anything. And I remember being on the field, looking up at the stands, wondering if he was up there, scanning the whole stadium, you know what I'm saying? Not seeing it, going to take this pain out on somebody else. That's just how it worked, and it's like we miss those connections, and be more so that you can establish those connections and propel your next generation forward. And on that, I will land my plane.
How do you propel generation forward? If okay, I'm speaking as though okay, we'll look at it from a perspective as though you you say you experienced this type of feeling, and so you say I don't want my child to feel this type of feeling, and so therefore you do all the things for your child. You know what I'm saying? And now your child has no remorse for the, you know what I'm saying, for the elderly. Don't, you know what I'm saying, act like how you would act, even though you've been telling him he just got to do opposite. You know what I'm saying? So because you said that you didn't want your child to feel what you felt, did you actually help your child? You know what I'm saying? In a matter of speaking, because now your child is everything opposite of what you thought it would be.
To be honest, Loki, what you can do, you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make them drink. You can give your kids all of the guidance in the world. You can give them all the tools that they need. Um, it depends on the connection, whether or not they actually listen to you. It also depends on the manner in which you raise them and whether or not they actually listen. You can't raise everybody the same. I've told you guys this before, you know what I'm saying? Everybody, you can't lead everyone in the exact same manner. Some people don't want to be told what to do. Um, Other people, you can just give them just a little bit of information and let them figure it out on their own. And then there are other types that just tell me what to do so I can do it. So you have to see what their personality type is in order to be able to reach them in the proper manner. You know, and I was in the military, so I got separated from my children when they were at a young age, and I can give them guidance. I can give them certain things, but it comes down to whether or not the parents in the household also echo the same message that you echo. Because if you say go left and then they say go right, because they're there in the house with that child is going to go right and not left, even though right would have been the wrong decision at this particular point in time, or maybe not the most productive decision at this particular point in time. Going left would have been more, you know what I'm saying? But there's really not much you can do as far as that influence if you are not in the same environment with the children. That's why I said you can give them the tools, you can tell them what to do, but if you have someone countering everything you say and everything they do because they have a disdainment for you, so no matter what you say, they see as being wrong, no matter how right you may be, if they feel that what I'm saying, just because they don't care for you, they're gonna tell the child to do the exact opposite of what you stated to do, only because you stated to do it. No matter how right it is. But again, I'm going on right now, and I believe that if I'm not mistaken, Meet, you had your hand up first, and then Arya had her hand.
Yeah. I was kind of getting back to what you said about the system put in place to break up families. Um, how America really changed going from two parent homes to kind of separating the kids from their parents, kind of, you know. Divorce also kind of breaks up families too. Like you could start off in some, kids start off in a two parent home, but the mother and father don't see eye to eye anymore, then they divorce. And um sometimes one kid go with the mom, one kid go with the dad, you know. Even if they're not even if they're not married and you're in two parent home, one of the parents probably could get fed up with the other and just decide to leave, you know. It can be like that, kind of like what me and my sisters and brothers went through. Um, Mom and dad was together for the first four kids. After the last kid came, he decided that he wanted to venture off and separate and break up. So it was mainly my mom raising four kids. Then my grandma stepped in and took my sisters. So it was my brothers and I with my mom. So and then growing up, we saw our pops maybe during the summertime, sometimes during the holidays, and I was like you, Unc, looking in the stands for my pops. That never showed up for any sports events. Um, so but as we got older, we still sparingly saw him until around 2015 when he and my mom got back together, and then a year later they got married. So see him a lot more. But yeah, went through that, not seeing him that much. Um, with mom, she had a boyfriend, but the boyfriend wasn't pops. We respected him because we come from that era where we had to respect our elders. But one pop to be there all the time was kind of hard, and you know, so that's my thing on it. Sometimes sometimes you start off a two parents home, but things may happen, and you're down to a one parent home. So sometimes things happen, and like when I got older, I made it a vow that I wasn't gonna abandon my kids. So even though my kid's mom was like, oh, you can leave, I can do it all by myself. No, you can't do it by yourself because you're staying with me. So so and then after we got another place, or she got her place, I had to get her a place, and then we went in together, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, she was like, we're not together anymore. So I'm like, dang, just like that. So it was down to she was living with them, and then I still made it in my mind, still made it up in my mind, my heart to be there for my kids all the time, which I was all the time, getting them all the time. And then, like I said earlier about my nephews and niece and stuff, with their dad really wasn't in the picture. I took it upon myself to help raise them. So make sure I was that father figure that they needed at every event for all of them. So it was like six of them, like four boys, two girls. My two, my sister two, my other sister two, yeah, and my other sister two. So it was like six of them. That was at every event, just about every sporting event. Took them to church all the time with me. Um, so that's one thing that kind of proud of, that I had the opportunity to step in and be the father figure for them and still raising my kids and doing I'm supposed to do. But yeah, sometimes we we go through um we go through life wanting that figure, that father figure to be in our life, but sometimes we only get it when we are older. So that's my take on it.
Thank you, me.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
I you actually hit a bunch of points that I wanted that I'm over here trying to like note on where to even start. I kind of want to venture back when I originally raised my hand and we were talking, and uncle's talking about like those missing moments or those important things that you should know or that you wouldn't know if you're not there, if you're absent. And it really made me think back because just recently I just got my second degree, and just not having my dad there, like it was such a big moment for me and he wasn't there. And so it really felt like there was like this whole thing was missing. It might have been little for, some other people, but it was like huge for me. And it really is the little things, like having someone to call, when your child is sick or, not sure what to do, or for someone to just like check in and be like, hey, did you eat today? Or how are you feeling today? Like my dad was that person for me. He called me like I used to call my dad a stalker. Because he would just call me all of the time. And I guess at the time, thinking in hindsight, I just never realized how important that was to me now that I don't have that anymore. Those small questions, those check-ins, you know, they just at the moment or at the time, it's like, oh, dad, okay, just stop. Like, I'm good. I'm fine. You called me an hour ago. Like, it's okay. But then not here anymore, then it's like, well, those simple tasks I don't get anymore. Those simple calls I don't get anymore. It's like I don't know, a silent echo for me because all I can do is just like now remember. Like all I can do is just think. And like it's crazy. I even go back to on Facebook how they'll send you like these like memories and stuff like that. And it'll say like back on this day or this happened. And honestly, that's the main reason why I still have Facebook is because Facebook sends me those memory posts that my dad used to send me all the time. And he'll just be like responding to a post that I wrote or whatever, or, just sending me simple like, I love you, you're the best, and, you know, um, things like that. And so I don't want to try to get emotional or anything, but I just kind of like miss those things. And so now that I know that I've had them, I just don't know where I would be growing up without my father or any parent. Like we mentioned before, it could be any parent, not just not having someone that's stable in your life, because I know people that did grow up with their grandparents because their parents couldn't do it, you know, but they lived perfectly fine lives living with their grandparents. Like I want to say like in our days, like if you were brought up in like the 90s, 80s, 70s, for the most part, your grandparents were like a huge part of your life. That was just kind of a thing back then. Nowadays, the grandparents, they could be a part of the life, but the grandparents are just about as old as the parents, it seems. um, and so I don't know. I just feel like there's just a lot of missing important moments, like if I got married who's gonna be the one to walk me down the aisle. Like, I do have two brothers, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're gonna walk me down the aisle. Or if they do, it's still not the same as having like your father walk you down the aisle. Like, as a girl or as a woman, you know, you're like, if you don't have your father, that's kind of a big deal. That can be, you know, an emotional impact for you, where you see women all of the time, they're in their perfect dresses and their perfect weddings, and they have their father walking them down the aisle. They go to their reception and they have their first dance with their father, or I guess it's called the father daughter dance. You don't have that if you don't have your father. Like, who do you have that with? And yeah, it may be traditional. You can always do something different, but I can't honestly say that in the back of my head I would just be like, well, it's okay. I have somebody that's stepping up for me or that's different, and you know, I can dance with them. So I don't know. It's just, for me, it's just looking back at those little things that can be missing in your life, and it's like, it may be little, but it may actually be huge and can make a huge traumatic impact on your life. And I'll land my plane there.
All right. Appreciate you for sharing that. So we kind of touched on it earlier. We were talking about how um, these cycles are repeated, perpetuated, if you will. Just if we don't start to step up, or we're not teaching the next generation to step up. I have noticed that a lot of the younger guys, I look at my little cousins and everything, and of course they're in the 30s and everything now as well, you know, but I see them stepping up with their children. I see them doing things because it's like that cycle always repeats. But the question is why? Why is it that, especially in my community, you know, we have so many single parents? You know, why is there so many single mothers? Why are the fathers not present? What's really going on? And like I said, I can see from some of these younger generations that they have started to step their game up. They have seen what it was like to grow up without that father figure in the house, or without that paternal parent. Because I know people, and man, one of my homeboys, well, we was chopping it up one day, and we just got to talking, and his mother died at a young age, and he never even knew his father. He knew of him, but never knew him, and so he's basically on his own since he was teens. Um, you know what I'm saying? So listening to his story and how he talks today, though, it's like you can tell he's been through a lot. He's had to mature on his own. He had to learn how to cope, you know, and heal himself. And it's a very powerful story. And I want to get him on as a guest one day, and hopefully he can tell this story himself. But it's like just listening to that, the way he speaks, the energy that he has, it's like he's very motivational, you know. And for someone to grow up with a lack of, you have to be, as Cat Williams said, you gotta be in your star player, you know what I'm saying, to pull that off. Like, because there's so many things to be depressed about. There's so many things that can have you spiraling and going down the wrong road. But to be able to persevere and to pull yourself together to follow what feels right, even though you are surrounded in darkness, you know, it is a testimony, a testament to him and his willpower, you know. Uh, but getting back to the original question is, how do you stop repeating these cycles? How do we um, how do we teach this next generation to be more engaging? You know, Loki, you touched on that earlier. It's like you asked this question. So, because a lot of times people don't want to grow up to be just like them, and you can insert them for whomever it may be, you know. So that, in my sense, is a motivation. A lot of us nowadays, uh, we we went out to get those educations because we realized that education is key. Um, we started looking at self, but when we started doing that, at least I can speak for myself, um, it's like family turned back on us, or on me at least. You know, and Meech, I believe I heard you say something about that before as well. It's like once you start to break generational cycles, people start to look at you not as if you are doing better, but as if you think that you are better. And it's like, that's not the case at all. Don't be upset with me because I wanted more for myself than what you wanted for yourself. And then you have the animosity. But for me, it was always my little cousins would always tell me I want to be just like you when I grow up. And my exact words was them to them were, don't be like me, be better than me. You know what I'm saying? And teach the next generation to be better than you, you know, because that's how we get ahead. We get ahead by pouring back into our people. And on that, I will land my plane.
I love that you mentioned, um, like you're doing better, or people, I guess people, the way that you said it was like people think that you're doing better or that you are better because of the way you were raised or the dynamics of how your parents made your decisions. Because I am kind of like the last generation, I guess, of well, I don't want to say last generation. Just in my from my grandmother's side, on my maternal side, of her kids and then her first grandkids. I'm the last of those. My It's me, my little brother, who's my Irish twin, and then another cousin of mine. We're like the last three, but everybody else was always between, like, I think 7 years old. 7 years was the largest gap. So between being 7 years older than us three, all the way to being like 20 years older than us three. So they were able to see a different dynamic of how everybody was growing up, whereas like us three, we didn't have the same growing up that everybody else did. Like they used to tell us stories about my grandmother um getting getting on them, and like if they did something wrong, she'd like take a shoe and like throw it at them or whatever. But like we didn't, the three of us, we never had to deal with that. And so I just say that because I was so young that I really never got a chance to like know my cousins and how they grew up. And the only thing that I remember as at a young age was my parents decided that they no longer wanted to live in Jersey because it was just getting too, rough, and it was violent and all these things like that. They wanted a better life, basically. So they left and moved down south. Now, I'm growing up down south. I do still go back home and I visit them, and we have our family reunions and all these different things like that. Still, they are 7 years older than me, or older. So we have nothing in common, When I turned 21, um since I'm the youngest woman, I'm the youngest female of all of my cousins. Um when I turned 21, we finally was like, oh, we should have a cousin trip. All of us get together and things of that nature. We did that. And I realized at that moment what I did not know prior to was that a lot of my family did not like me. Um, I didn't know that. I didn't have a reason to know that. But it was that I guess I carry myself differently from them, but it's because of the way I was brought up. And so they see that and they make that like I'm better than them, or I think that I'm better than them, or something like that. But it's like, no, it's like my parents had to make a decision what they were going to do with their own children and move us somewhere where we're not in the midst of any kind of like problems or dangers or, and things of that nature. They did what they thought was best. So you can only make decisions as a parent to do what is best for your family and for your children. There's no rule book to this thing, as being parents. So people are going to have so many different ways that they can do one thing, it's not really a simple decision or scenario. It's a case by case. So I didn't know that they didn't like me, but some things popped off, and that's how I found that's how I found out. But ultimately we don't have a relationship because of something that my parents decided that they wanted to do, which was us have a better life. And you have to be the parent that decides this is what I want for my kids. And you can't keep creating the same scenario and same cycle, because ultimately your children are going to end up doing the same thing. So now my cousins have children, and now their children are doing the same thing and having the same behaviors because they made no changes. Someone has to make the change. Someone has to want to be better and do better. You don't have, usually when you have children, you would think, okay, what is it that I did not get when I was growing up? What is it that I want to provide to my children that I was not given? You know, um, just being intentional with actually choosing every single day to do something different and to make life better for you and your children. You cannot keep doing the same cycle. Someone has to break that cycle. And on that, I'll end my point.
Yes, Arya, you're so right with somebody has to break that cycle because um if it keeps going then we're not gonna have, you know, the kids not gonna grow up and learn respect and want to be better in life and stuff, you know. So you're right about having somebody to break that cycle of one parent thing because I know and I've heard a lot of stories where men, black men, has grown up with without the father or without the mother, but decided, you know, when they got older that they were going to break the cycle of one parent homes, and they you know they meet their significant other and get married and do the right thing. I mean, I ain't gonna say one parent is not doing right, but you know, um, growing up and starting a two parent household, you know, statistics um, um, are way different um, with one parent household compared to two parent household. You know, so that is a good thing with you know, breaking cycles. So that's what I have.
Appreciate it. I agree with you guys as far as what we need to do. Um, And a lot of times it's a lot easier said than done. The thing that I see is that we need to change our mindsets as to how we interact with family members, how we interact with children, our parenting styles, the whole 9 yards. Because again, I'm Gen X. We were raised different. We Ford built tough and all that good stuff there. So we were basically neglected as children. Let's call it what it is. Uh, and as I grew up, I knew exactly the amount of freedom that I had, and I knew damn well I could not give that to my children. Um, I'll just be honest, man. It's like um, I wanted to be not just that tough parent, but that loving, fun parent for them as well. I try to be, the one that they can come talk to whenever about anything. I was that one that literally used to walk in the middle of the living room when I first got home from work and whatever, what I'm saying? Everybody's in their own little space. And I just yell out, pillow fight. And everybody would just converge in on me with their pillows or taking pillows off the sofas or whatever case, just have fun with the kids. Do little movie nights at the house, pop popcorn and just sit down and watch something that they wanted to watch. Little board games, things of that nature. To me, that was changing the dynamics. It was being more engaged with the children. It was giving them an opportunity to, like, we used to actually have family meetings, something I never had when I was growing up, where I can actually sit here and say, I didn't like the way certain things were going, or give the opportunities for the children to express their emotions. Let them, what I'm saying, let their voices be heard, take into consideration certain things, and just let them know why certain things wasn't going to happen. Um, but just giving them that safe space that they can talk, that they can open up and just be themselves. I feel like that is important. A lot of times, parents don't want to hear um, those type of opinions. It's basically it's ruled by force, dictatorship, if you will. I'm the parent. You will do what I say because I said do it. And to me, that parenting style is effective, but it's not the most. It's not the absolute best way to get your children to open up to you. What I have learned through my experience is talking, and especially me personally, is like when people get to talking at me, bro, I tune you out so fast nowadays. Like I know you weren't talking to me type energy, you know what I'm saying? Like rewind, reset, let's try that again. Um, you know, so I try to give the kids at least some form of courtesy, you know what I'm saying, when I speak to them. I may ask you to do something the first time. If you take your time or waited too long, now I'm telling you to get your behind up and do it. There's a difference between parenting, you know what I'm saying, your parenting styles that you can incorporate, Um, for me, I didn't believe in beating on the children. A simple timeout was enough, you know. My son, he, saying ADHD. And before we realized and got him diagnosed, like he was literally everywhere, So like Cat Williams was talking about, as soon as he wakes up, feet hit the ground, boy, running. He's everywhere, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, well, why are you so hyper? He was always into stuff. And in the beginning, yeah, he used to get pops. After the diagnosis, nah, what I'm saying? Let's find more creative ways. See, I'm military, so we're gonna find ways to burn off the energy. Okay, you got energy, no problem. Let's do some push-ups. Let's do jumping jacks. You know what I'm saying? There are creative ways to get them to, what I'm saying, react and to behave in a certain manner. Um, yeah, it is very important that we change the dynamics, and changing dynamics starts within the house. And being in the house, that means first and foremost, parents, we have to learn how to get along. We have to learn to agree to disagree, but also find resolution, because having too many unresolved issues is also an issue. And it's one of those things that will, you know how it go, the war of the roses, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't be that mad I left the cap off the toothpaste type stuff. But we as parents have to learn how to communicate with each other in a manner in which we can at least agree on parenting and what's best for the child. And on that note, I will land my plane.
So I wanted to jump in because you were talking about how you guys basically were able to do kind of almost everything, and you were like, yeah, no, I'm not letting my letting my kids do half the stuff that I did. I feel that. But I also know that a lot of parents nowadays, I mean, they've kind of made it a little bit harder for some parents too, because now there's like all these different extra laws in place, that are starting to parent the kids instead of the parents actually parenting the kids. I can agree that I don't really believe in like spankings or anything like that, but I do know that all children have to be dealt with as an individual, because not all kids respond to the same. Um, I would say, like, I don't want to say punishments, but I can't think of another word right now. They're just not going to react the same. Like, it's funny, we have this joke in my house, that we all call my mom, like, either it's my mom or it's your mom, because there's a difference. There's a huge difference. My siblings and I, even if we are brought up in the same household, it is still a different mother because she parent us based on what she knew. So like the oldest sister, she of course was the only child, and my mom didn't know anything, and so she had to learn some things. Once she had me, then it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm familiar a little bit because I had a child, before. Even if it was 9 years ago, like, I remember mostly, how to care for this child and do right for this child. And so you have a little bit of an up, and then you have another child, and your parenting just kind of like starts to lay back. So now I have a younger sister. I mean, well, she's 21 now, but still, I just remember her doing the wildest things, and I would flinch. Like, I didn't even get spankings growing up, but I would flinch because I'm like, oh, I know she getting ready to get it. I know she getting ready to get it. And nope, nothing. So it just made me think of like when you were mentioning like different parenting styles and things of that nature. I think one of the biggest shifts that we could probably make is really parents being present. If we are growing up, especially if we're growing up in homes that where survival kind of thing was the like focus, and the love was like, well, I gave you food, I gave you lights, I gave you a place to sleep, I bought your clothes. That's love. If you had all of that, then you might want to change things. You might want to grow a little bit differently, so that way you can teach your kids in another way, where it's like, you don't want your kids to like feel like they should be afraid of you. You do want to show that there's a difference between like control and like still having boundaries, because I tell that to my kids all the time. Like, I mean, I'm not a mom, but I still kind of like, I kind of see myself as a mom with like all of the many children that I have as my students. And there's certain things that sometimes they forget that I'm a whole grown woman, because I do show them love and I show them care, as their educator. And but then they get too comfortable, and they start saying things, or, and it's just a matter of like making sure that you have boundaries and respect without, without the fear, without the shame, without repeating those like emotional distances that most kids are, our age, like millennials and Gen X, I would say, almost brought up the same, in a sense, and just setting new standards, learning to communicate clearly, even apologizing. I don't know what it is about parents and apologizing, or feeling like they do not have to apologize because they are the parent. If you're wrong, you're wrong. Holding that space for someone that's that's in pain or that's hurting, and not dismissing things, being like, well, that's just who I am. This is the type of person that I am, or this is how I grew up, or this is what I know. It's like, no, okay, you don't have to own those things. Yeah, it might be how you grew up, but that doesn't make it right. And I don't know. I just think there should be like, just a change in mindset of parenting, and also this whole, I don't know if this would be a different subject, but this whole like my parent is my best friend. I I don't get that. I don't get that dynamic. My parent is my best friend. Like my mom, I love her to death, but I am not her equal. I never will be her equal. And I think a lot of times parents feel like nowadays, like they have to have that kind of relationship with their kids. And that is why a lot of the kids end up becoming so rambunctious, or, out of control, And I also wanted to step on that. You mentioned having family meetings. I absolutely love that idea, and I wish that was a norm. We used to have like conversations type of situation. It wasn't really family meetings. It was just kind of like we're all in the same space and we're just like talking about things that we want to do or we're interested in, or sometimes we'll talk about like oh, well, there's a break coming up or Christmas is coming up, what do you guys want to do, you kind of stuff like that. But normalizing having family meetings, I think, would make such a huge impact on some households, on all households, and it also opens the door to teach emotional intelligence and collaboration, and family communication, that you shouldn't have to be like afraid to talk to your parents. It's something you can like build on and create, where I guess not feeling like you have this crazy hierarchy, in your family, and this crazy dynamic that like your parents are just like these, mean-spirited creatures that only want to like boss you around and tell you what to do and stuff like that, and it builds healthier relationships with the parents and the kids, I can't tell you. So like now, at my school where I teach, we're not exactly allowed to we don't talk about like sex education or anything like that, but we do realize that some of the kids, I teach middle school, that's when your hormones start to kick in, and you start getting curious, and you might do some things or look at some things that you're not supposed to do, and so mentioning it to the kids, I was really blown away at how many of my students are afraid, absolutely terrified of having any kind of conversation about their sexual maturity to their parents. And I just thought that was so sad. And I'm like, well, if they can't talk to their own parents, then who are they going to talk to? They're going to start talking to the wrong people. They're going to start talking to their friends who don't know any better. They might start talking to some uneducated individuals who don't know any better. They might start Googling stuff on the internet, just to appease their imagination or whatever their thought processes are, which can be even more dangerous, because, I mean, let's face it, usually there's There's a level to what you do when you start Googling things online that can distort the mind of a child. You know, as an adult, probably not likely, you know, because we are more in tune with our thought processes, you know, and so we can decipher, you know, what's real, what's not, and what's possible and what's, you know, not possible. It's like you watching, you know, a horror movie. Just because you like horror movies doesn't mean that you're gonna actually go out there and start, you know, doing that. But if a child is looking at something constantly, you know, they might grow into that curiosity. It's very possible because their minds are still growing. I know that's a different topic too. That can be a huge debate because some people don't believe in that. You know, just because you watch it doesn't mean that you're not affected by it. I, on the other hand, believe that you can be affected by things that you watch and listen to. But going back into like kids being afraid to talk to their parents, like you shouldn't want your kids to be afraid to talk to you because you want to be able to confide in those individuals. You know, this is why we need the parents present, you know, and not for anything, both the mom and the dad for different reasons. Because there's certain things that as a woman, I would not talk to my dad about. Like, I'm not getting ready to go to him and be like, oh my God, my cycle. And I don't understand. But he's going to look at me crazy. Like, I don't know. Like, go talk to your mama, you know? And so there's just certain things that talking to my dad, I felt more comfortable with, you know? So there's, even as a man, I would think you would want to go to your dad more than your mom about how to be a man, how to be responsible. What are you supposed to do in relationships? How do you treat your woman? You know, what do you do, you know, if you're interested in women? And, you know, even going into talking about, you know, your sexual experiences and stuff like that, you know. There's just different dynamics to why both parents are very important in the household, not just one versus the other. And on that, I will land my plane.
Arya, with the what you're saying about the discipline or the spanking. I didn't spank my kids a lot, but the like the on like the most of the times that I did was when they like really did something bad or they said something bad. Um, my corrections came from my voice because like I was military. Um, and then mine mainly came from my voice and my kind of threats. Like if you don't straighten up, I'm gonna knock the fire out of you. I'm gonna beat you till your nose bleed, like our grandma used to tell us. But I did, you know, kind of spank them every once in a while. But when they became like teenagers, like my voice and my little threats got them in line, you know. So that was my discipline. And then like Unc said in the military, I gave them I gave them our correction that we were given. You know, the push-ups, um, the push-ups, running. It was called one thing was called front back go. We said front push-ups, back sit-ups, go run in place. So they got tired of that. Also did with my nephews and my nieces. You know, that was happening. So my you know I try to make sure that they knew that like you say they can come to me talk about anything. If they acted up, I was going to discipline them. And then one thing that I would tell them, listen to me because if you don't listen, you will get hurt. Guess what happened when they didn't listen? They got hurt. So that was one big thing too. And, one thing they still talk about now, like I still listen. And if I think about doing something bad, I think about what you said, you know. So That's my take on, you know. I spanked them when that I needed to, but I didn't spank them all the time when they messed up. You know, I would explain to them why they messed up and why I told them not to do what they were, you know, not to do the thing that was going to hurt them. So
Mish,
yeah,
do you
that's
have
it.
boys or girls or both?
I have a boy and a girl. Boy and girl. Girl is the oldest.
Did you raise them the same?
No, well, kind of yeah, and kind of no, because even though you know how they say the daddy's girl, I still was kind of hard on her. You know, make sure they were doing the right thing. So, but with my son, I mean, I kind of raised him the right way. Like I made sure that I did something for both of them instead of like giving one person one of the kids something and I get the other one something. I would make sure that they were together when I did things with them. You know, so
I was thinking more like on the discipline area because I would
okay,
think, as a man, maybe you're not gonna discipline your
cool.
daughter the same that you would discipline your sons. Like
Yeah.
some I've heard of like some guys having, just different ways that they were brought up versus their sisters.
Mhm.
I actually have a student who one male and he's got four sisters. Now his sisters are all older than him, but they were all brought up super, super strict, super, super strict. They really couldn't like veer off the line at all whatsoever.
Mhm.
Um, and their father was extremely just like on them all of the time, especially, with their grades and everything. They had to like bring home all A's and B's. Like they couldn't bring home anything less, and forget boys because that's not even an option. And so I just saw the dynamic there. But then once I got the brother, yeah, this kid is I mean, he's a handful and a half and he does the wildest things, and like we get on him all of the time. He's had several suspensions, and it's funny because not funny, but like one of the last suspensions that he had, he went to a cruise. Like you got you got on a 2-week suspension and you went on a cruise. And granted, he is the youngest and he's the only boy, so I'm thinking like, okay, well maybe he's got this dynamic where the parents are like, oh, we finally got a boy, or maybe that was the thing. But had it been like, oh, let's just say Chad or Leroy, there are two brothers that are together and they are brought up differently than him, then I can be like, oh, it's for sure because he's the youngest one. But considering he's a boy and he's got four sisters, um I would never have thought like he would have gotten it so much easier than the girls. So that's why I was asking, like, how do you I guess discipline, both the boy and the girl if they're the exact same, or if you look at one as like, oh, I have to be harder on you because you're a girl, or I have to be harder on you because you're a boy.
Oh no, it was mainly the same with both of them. Discipline them both the same way because, like you said, sometimes the girl will get it, you know, more leniency from the father, you
Mhm.
know. But nah, I made sure I was on both of them the same way because I I don't like to talk about people, but I wanted I wanted to make sure they're doing the right thing because their mom kind of let them get away with stuff, even though she was acting like she was harvest. But I was like, nah, y'all can't do that. So I had to make sure that I was on both of them at you know giving them the same discipline because I did want them to do good in school, but I also told them a C is still not bad. You know, a C is still passing. But they were intelligent. They on the honor roll all the time and stuff like that. But yeah, I disciplined them about the same because sometimes she was a little sneaky, so I had to make sure that I had to stay up on that because sometimes I don't know. I'm not talking about y'all, but sometimes girls can be a little more sneaky than guys. But
All right, now watch your mouth. Watch your mouth. Loudest.
I'm just joking.
Open
Sometimes I
mouth,
say
insert
sometimes.
foot.
But
Don't
yeah,
start, none won't be done.
yeah. She got her little spankings when she got out of line. But like I said before, when they became teenagers and stuff, my voice and my little threats kept them in line. So
I think that's good
yeah.
though. And that just goes to show like there's different types of parenting style. Like you don't always have to revert to, spankings or anything like that. But it's really about finding like that happy medium, what works for your household, but also creates stable and a healthy environment with disciplined children, because when you have disciplined children, then they can grow up to be, good citizens. And ultimately that's what we want in this life is good citizens, Go ahead, Meech.
Yeah, you're right. We want good citizens, and to good citizens will break generational curses. And I was like the pop up dad. Like if I hear about you acting up in school, I will pop up like, hey, can I sit in the back of the classroom with you? And the teacher, most of the time, the teacher's like, sure, Mr. Banks, go ahead and sit on in the back. Make sure little man is doing right. It's that pop up kid. It even popped up for my nieces and nephews also to keep them in line. So
See, what you should have
yeah,
did was stay right next to him. That's what I did. That's what I did.
I was
there you
thinking
go.
the
There
same
you
thing.
go.
I will pull up the shelf right next to you, tapping you with my elbow. Pay attention.
Yeah,
Oh my God, yes. And the sitting next to them on the side with the pinch, you pinch them on
yeah,
the thigh.
yeah.
like you act right. I raised you right.
And
I
one good
wish I
thing,
had pop-up parents like that in my school because
yeah,
they don't do that. They absolutely don't. The parents do not come to the school at all. We'll call them a million times and they don't come to the schools.
because my grandma was a pop up parent, so we got that from her. She used to tell us. So I was like, oh, you can do that. Let's go. And one good thing when I was going to school when I was going to school to become a teacher, I did like the teaching assistant part of it in my son's class, so that helped out a lot too.
Wraps up another episode of All in One. Thank you guys for coming out. We really appreciate you. Make sure to check out our other episodes. We do have a full episode on parenting as well as that episode on narcissists. Learning how to deal with narcissistic behavior. We are streaming everywhere. Storefront will be opening soon, so please make sure to support the channel. Once again, thanks for coming out. This is All in One.